Democrats pass $1 trillion infrastructure bill ending day-long standoff. Biden administration to now oversee biggest upgrade of America's roads, railways and other transportation infrastructure in a generation, which he has promised will create jobs and boost U.S. competitiveness. A new alliance of 9 anti-Ethiopian government factions plan to dismantle government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed by force or by negotiations. Now to form a transitional government, UN Security Council calls for an end to fighting in Ethiopia. Europe braces up for possible COVID-19 surge following WHO warning. Austria bans unvaccinated from restaurants. French president to address the nation on Tuesday as cases surge. India's COVID statistics continue to steady decline path. Active caseload stands at 1.46 lakh, lowest in last 255 days. Vaccination coverage climbs to 107.92 crore doses. Important game for Australia as they take on unpredictable West Indies in the 2020 World Cup game today. Last chance for South Africa to stay alive. Need big win against red-hot England in Sharjah. And in the country, festivities continue with Bhai Dooj festivals being celebrated, which celebrates the bond shared between brothers and sisters. Vice President and Prime Minister greet the nation on Bhai Dooj. Good afternoon and welcome to the news. I'm Amritpal Singh. Well, those were the headlines and now the news in detail. The day-long standoff. After a day-long standoff, Democrats set aside divisions between progressives and centrists to pass a $1 trillion package of highway, broadband and other infrastructure improvement, sending it on to the U.S. President Joe Biden to sign it into a law. The 228 to 206 vote is substantial triumph for Biden's Democrats, who have bickered for months over the ambitious spending bills that make up the bulk of his domestic agenda. Biden's administration will now oversee the biggest upgrade of America's roads, railways and other transportation infrastructure in a generation, which he has promised will create jobs and boost U.S. competitiveness. Democrats were able to set aside divisions between progressives and centrists to pass the $1 trillion package of highway, broadband and other infrastructure improvement, sending it on to President Joe Biden to sign into law late Friday.
On this vote, the yeas are 228 and the nays are 206. The motion is adopted.
Great leadership, the vision that he has put forth, the knowledge of all of his years in the Congress and as Vice President in terms of legislation, and his respect for all of our members, paying so much attention to their concerns and more especially to how we can work together to meet the needs of the American people.
Build back better. And let me just say, that when we do, it will be a phenomenal achievement for our country to say we're not leaving anybody behind. This rule vote tonight is the beginning of the delivering of that promise. It is actually codifying that promise that our colleagues have made to us tonight. And let me tell you, we're going to trust each other because the Democratic Party is together on this. We are united that it is important for us to get both bills done.
Well, talking about Ethiopia now, a new alliance of 9 anti-Ethiopian government factions said on Friday that it plans to dismantle the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed by force or by negotiations and then form a transitional government in the country. 9 anti-government factions signed onto an agreement to form the alliance, and they announced at a news conference in Washington, D.C., piling pressure on Ahmed as rebel forces advance towards the capital of Ethiopia. They called on the United Front of Ethiopian Federalist and Confederalist forces. The alliance includes the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which has been fighting Ahmed's government for a year in a war that has killed thousands of people and forced more than 2 million more from their homes. African and Western nations have called for immediate ceasefire in Ethiopia after Tigrayan forces from the north said that they have moved closer to Addis Ababa this week. The TPLF had dominated national politics for nearly 3 decades but lost much influence when Abiy took office in 2018.
We reiterate our position that we do not recognize the illegally constituted government by the self-acclaimed prosperity party based on sham election to which the main opposition parties in Ethiopia were denied participation. Equally, the United Front of Ethiopian Federalist and Confederalist Forces categorically reject and shall consider it null any attempt to temper the existing constitution in any form or shape. Therefore, we call upon all the Federalist and Confederalist forces in Ethiopia to join the front, whose core goal is clearly stated and benefits the entire nations and peoples in Ethiopia.
Meanwhile, the UN Security Council on Friday called for an end to fighting in Ethiopia and for talks on a lasting ceasefire as the 15-member body expressed deep concern in a rare statement about the expansion and intensification of military clashes. The Council also called for refraining from inflammatory hate speech and incitement to violence and divisiveness. It had been negotiating a statement for several days and eventually reached a compromise with Russia on the text. Such statements have to be agreed upon by consensus. Russia and China have long made clear that they believe that the year-long conflict, which started in northern region of Tigray, is an internal affair for Ethiopia. Both countries are council veto powers along with the United States, Britain and France, so any strong council action like sanctions is unlikely. The High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, has called for Sudan's military leaders to step back following a coup last week in remarks delivered at an emergency session on the situation in the country at the Human Rights Council in Geneva. Bachelet described the October 25th military takeover as deeply disturbing and called for an end to the deadly use of force by armed forces as well as military police and intelligence elements, which she said had so far killed at least 13 civilians. Bachelet added that the release of politicians, journalists and protesters was essential for an inclusive dialogue and swift return to civilian rule.
The past 2 years have seen valuable progress towards setting up a National Human Rights Commission and key independent commission envisaged in the constitutional document, including on transitional justice, land, women and gender equality, legal reforms, and corruption.
The United Nations is seeking an end to political crisis following the coup via talks between Sudanese Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok, who was placed under house arrest, and the coup leaders. The 47-member UN Council is holding an urgent session following a request from Britain and others. Members will later decide on a resolution prepared by Britain, Germany, Norway and the United States that would create a human rights expert to monitor events since the coup and prepare a written report in early 2022. Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido is on Friday welcomes ICC's decision to open an investigation into possible human rights crimes in a South American nation. Guaido's reaction comes after International Criminal Court's prosecutor Karim Khan met with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in Caracas to sign a memorandum of understanding on the investigation on Wednesday. Khan has determined that he will proceed to open an investigation to establish the truth of events in Venezuela, according to the memorandum. The ICC has been conducting a preliminary examination into the country since 2018 and said that there may be reason to believe officials in Maduro's government have committed crimes against humanity. The decision by the ICC was hailed as a step in the right direction by advocacy groups. Maduro's government says it respects the decision but does not share the ICC's opinion.
This is the first time in America's history that a regime, a de facto authority, is directly implicated for violations against human rights. For us, this means that justice will come to Venezuela, but it also signifies everything we had to endure as a society, everything we have had to endure as Venezuelans denied justice.
As Nicaragua's presidential election draws closer, ballots in urns were distributed by the Army and the Supreme Electoral Council throughout Central American country. Earlier this week, the chief of Nicaraguan Army, General Julio Cesar Avalos, stressed the Army's support for the Council, the public body responsible for organizing elections and counting of votes. There are three candidates opposing former President Daniel Ortega and Vice President Rosario Murillo. In the past month, 7 rival presidential hopefuls have been imprisoned, accused of crimes from money laundering to treason. Walter Espinoza from the Constitutional Liberal Party, Gerson Gutierrez from the Alliance for the Republic, and Mauricio Urrio from the Independent Liberal Party will be seen in the ballot along with Ortega. Nevertheless, Ortega is poised to win a 4th consecutive term, extending his run as the longest-serving ruler in Americas until at least January 2027.
We respect the vote of our people who had sovereignty to elect our authority, and it is the Supreme Electoral Council who will establish who is elected in this electoral process. Because of this, we reiterate our firm support for the Supreme Electoral Council.
Dozens of Haitians gathered around the remaining petrol stations in Port-au-Prince on Friday to get their hands on at least a handheld tank worth of fuel. Days of fuel shortages have left people with few transportation options, forced the closure of some businesses and threatened the daily running of hospitals since gangs started blocking ports that hold fuel stores. The island nation has been struggling with shortages and lawlessness following the July assassination of President Jovenel Moise. Elections originally scheduled for November have been suspended after Prime Minister Ariel Henry dismissed the council that organizes the vote. In the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, security forces in Rajouri district have closed vehicular traffic from Thana Mandi to Rajouri in view of the ongoing cordon and search operation at Khabla and other nearby villages of the district. Officials told that the operation was launched in the intervening night of Friday and Saturday, while forces closed roads between Thana Mandi and Rajouri in the morning hours on Saturday. Additional security forces have been rushed to the area for massive cordon and search operations. The prime accused in the Kerala gold smuggling case, Swapn Suresh, was released from jail today. The Kerala High Court granted her bail on November 2nd in the case registered by the National Investigation Agency under the UAPA. The bail was granted to her on a bond of 25 lakh rupees and 2 solvent sureties. Swapna is behind bars for the past 15 months after a diplomatic consignment addressed to the UAE consulate in Thiruvananthapuram was intercepted by the customs, and over 30 kilograms of gold was recovered in July last year. Swapna, who was on the run after the incident, was arrested by NIA from Bengaluru. The Narcotics Control Bureau has said that it functioned across India as a single integrated agency and no officer or officers were removed from their present roles, and they would continue to assist their operations branch investigation as required. The statement was issued soon after the agency transferred 6 of its cases from the Mumbai branch to its Delhi team. The NCB said a special investigation team comprising of officers from its operations branch had been constituted by the NCB DG to take over its Mumbai zonal unit until the 6 cases, as they had national and international ramifications. It further added that SIT would conduct a deeper investigation to find out forward and backward linkages. In Karnataka, the Indian State Coast Guard has rescued 7 fishermen after a fishing boat caught fire at a distance of 10 nautical miles from Karwar Lighthouse on Friday. The ICGS C-155 reached the incident spot and immediately swung into action of dousing the fire. C-155, braving the inclement weather, took 3 hours to complete the douse the seat of fire. On assessing that there was no further possibility of fire outbreak, C-155 provided all assistance and rescued the fishermen. All 7 fishermen are in healthy state, and all possible moral support to the fishermen was provided by the ICJ. Government hospitals are on alert in view of the surge in cases of Zika virus in Uttar Pradesh, Kanpur. In Kanpur, Ursula Hospital, where 10 beds have been reserved as part of the Zika ward, the medical department's teams are continuously conducting health checkups of people. Dr. Anil Nigam, the Chief Medical CMS Doctor of Ursula Hospital, said that his team is constantly monitoring people, while municipal teams have also been deployed for fogging.
जीका वायरस जब से कानपुर में निकला है तब जिलाधिकारी महोदय सीएमओ महोदय के साथ में हमारे हॉस्पिटल में 10 बेड बनाए गए हैं। उसमें हमने पूरे मॉस्किटो नेट, मॉस्किटो रिपेलेंट सब लगवा दिए हैं, दवाइयों की व्यवस्था कर दी है। कानपुर में कल भी 56 करीब केस शायद निकले थे, आज भी निकल रहे हैं और उम्मीद है कि बहुत जल्दी ही नियंत्रण में आने की उम्मीद है।
With the administration of 20,75,942 vaccine doses in the last 24 hours, India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has exceeded 107 crore 92 lakh till 7 a.m. today. 7,04,583 beneficiaries were given the first dose in the last 24 hours, while 13,71,359 people were given the second dose in a single day. More than 116.54 crore vaccine doses have been provided to states and UTs so far. More than 15.69 crore balance and unutilized COVID vaccine doses are still available with the states and union territories to be administered. Now let's take a look at the COVID situation from across the country. The recovery of 12,509 patients in the last 24 hours has increased the cumulative tally of recovered patients to 3 crore 37 lakh 37,468. Consequently, India's recovery rate stands at 98.23%, which is the highest since March 2020. Sustained and collaborative efforts by the centre and the states and union territories continue to the trend of less than 50,000 daily new cases that is being reported for 132 consecutive days now. 10,929 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. The active caseload is presently at 1,46,950, the lowest in 255 days. Active cases presently constitute 0.43% of the country's total positive cases, which is lowest since March 2020. The testing capacity across the country continues to be expanded. The last 24 hours saw a total of 8,10,783 tests being conducted. India has so far conducted over 61.39 crore cumulative tests. while testing capacity has been enhanced across the country. Weekly positivity remains at 1.27, which is less than 2% for the last 43 days, and also 1.35%. The daily positivity rate has remained below 2% for the last 33 days. Pfizer's experimental antiviral pill to treat COVID-19 was cut by 89% the chance of hospitalization or deaths for adults at risk of severe disease, the company said on Friday. Its CEO vowed to make this promising new weapon in a fight against pandemic available globally as quick as possible. The trial results suggest that Pfizer's drug surpasses Merck and Company Inc.'s pill Molnupiravir, which was shown last month to halve the chances of dying or being hospitalized for COVID-19 patients at high risk of serious illness. Pfizer's pill, with the brand name Paxlovid, said could secure U.S. regulatory approval by the end of this year. President Joe Biden and the U.S. government have rescued millions of doses of Pfizer drug.
So the drug works in inhibiting the reproduction of proteins for the virus. So it's called a protease inhibitor, which kind of is something that helps to denature the proteins into the viral particles that we see, and this drug kind of disrupts that process. So that kind of really makes the virus not virus anymore and really kills the virus at that point.
And let's now take a look at updates on COVID-19 from across the world. Well, COVID-19 cases crossed 24 crore 98 lakh across the world. The world records more than 22 crore 62 lakh recoveries from the disease, while the number of fatalities stand above 50 lakh 54,000. The U.S. continues to be remain the worst hit with the disease, with over 4 crore 72 lakh cases. The country has lost more than 7 lakh 74,000 lives due to COVID-19. And Europe is once again at the epicenter of the COVID pandemic. The World Health Organization has warned as cases soar across the continent. At a press conference, WHO Europe head Hans Klug said that the continent could see 500,000 more deaths by February. He blamed insufficient vaccine take-up for the rise. The rate of vaccination has slowed across the continent in recent months, while some 80% of the people in Spain are double jabbed. In Germany, it is as low as 66% and far low in some East European countries. Only 32% of Russians were fully vaccinated by October. Klug also blamed the relaxation of public health measures for rising infections in the WHO's European region, which covers 53 countries, including parts of Central Asia. So far, the WHO has recorded 1.4 million deaths across the region.
Admission rates due to COVID-19 more than doubled in 1 week, based on WHO Europe's latest data. According to one reliable projection, if we stay on this trajectory, we could see another 500,000 COVID-19 deaths in Europe and Central Asia by the 1st of February next year.
International Film Festival of India announces the selection of films for the Indian Panorama section to be screened during 52nd edition in Goa. 9 days long film festival to be held in Goa from the 20th till the 28th of November. A total of 24 feature films and 20 non-feature films have been selected to be screened during IFFI. Jury's choice for the opening feature film of Indian Panorama 2020 is the film Semkor, the Masa, directed by Aimi Barua. Jury's choice for the opening non-feature film of Indian Panorama 2021 is Ved, the Visionary, directed by Rajiv Prakash. The selection jury comprised of eminent filmmakers and film personalities from across the Indian cine world.
Preparations are in full swing with little time remaining for the commencement of the 52nd International Film Festival of India in Goa this year. The spellbinding 51st edition in 2020 saw jubilant participation in the online format of open forums, workshops, masterclasses and discussions. The 52nd edition of IFFI 2021 is ready to revive the magic beginning 20th of November 2021. The 52nd edition has brought forth a platform with all the information about the festival. The platform will help cinema lovers to be acquainted with intrinsic details of the festival. Also setting a new precedent, IFFI has invited entries from the mainstream OTT platforms to participate in the festival. The move is anticipated to strike a chord with the audiences. The International Film Festival of India on Monday announced the selection of films for the Indian Panorama section to be screened during its 52nd edition in Goa. 25 films hut in the feature film section, whereas 20 non-feature films will be showcased. Non-feature films of cinematic, thematic and aesthetic excellence to promote the art of filmmaking. The feature film section will open with northeastern movie Same Khor made in Dimasa, a local language of the area. The non-feature section will be opened by director Rajiv Prakash's Ved, the Visionary. Both the feature and non-feature section has a selection of films from a myriad range of languages spanning Bengali, Gujarati, Kannada, Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu and Hindi. With this acclaimed popularity nationwide as well as among international cinema buffs, the much-awaited festival is ready to entice the audiences with its diverse assortment. Bureau Report, DD India.
And qualification is at stake for Australia when they face West Indies in Abu Dhabi later today. A win should be enough to see them into the semi-finals as long as South Africa don't beat England and pull off a big net run rate swing in the final Group 1 match later in the day. But beating the eliminated West Indies is by no means a foregone conclusion for Aaron Finch and his side. The two nations played a 5-match 2020 series back in summer as they prepared for ICC's Men 2020 World Cup 21. It was West Indies who dominated those meetings, running out 4-1 series winners. And that's it then in the news. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.